Everybody, welcome to the press. Welcome to the final signature event of the year, the Travelers Championship. I'm Ryan Ballingy. It's good to have you with us for this show. It's a little late this week, and I apologize for that. A couple of different reasons. One, I played a member guest over the weekend. I know that sounds like a weird thing to do the weekend of a major championship, but I did it. It lined up. Had a great time. Also takes a lot out of you if you've ever played a member guest. And then yesterday, when I was thinking about doing the show, we decided we've been in this process of moving my son out of his bedroom upstairs in our home down into the basement. He's kind of getting to the age where he can have more space for himself. And so we've been doing that. It's a multi-stage process. The problem is I live predominantly in the basement of our house day to day doing work, right? My studio is down there. Usually record videos down there. So I've basically been moving myself out of that space so that can become his bedroom. I have a nice ensuite bathroom for him, which is great, to come up here upstairs in our home. And now I'm in basically our guest room, which is filled with stuff. And then I'm going to move to his old bedroom. And that's all going to take a little bit of time, but we had to move the heavy stuff yesterday, the dressers and all that good stuff. So apologies for all that. But this is the last signature event of the year. We got a 72-player field for the Travelers Championship. We'll talk about that. We will also touch on KPMG Women's PGA Championship at Hazeltine. And then if I feel like it's not dragging on, we'll get into a little bit of what's happening on the Korn Ferry Tour and the Italian Open on the DP World Tour. But let's focus on the Travelers Championship, played once again this year, TPC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut. It's a tournament I've been to. It's a tournament I like. I think it's very well run. I've never had the fortune to play the place. They invite me each year for the media day, and it's almost always around my birthday. And I've just kind of never made that trek. But it is a very good golf course. I really enjoy walking it. It is a Robert J. Ross design, although there over the years have been illusions that it's sort of a Pete Dye place, but it certainly doesn't really play that way. It's a par 70 golf course, 6844, one of the shortest golf courses on the PGA Tour. It is home to multiple sub-60 rounds, including Jim Furyk's round of 58. It is, if I were to describe it, although it is a short golf course, it is a gettable golf course, of course, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. There are a lot of penalties for missing off of the tee, lots of forested areas, lots of kind of streams and ponds that if you hit it poorly enough, you're not getting the ball back. And so there is a lot of less than driver play at this golf course because you don't really need to hit driver on most of these holes. And even the holes where you want to hit driver, like 15, the drivable par 4, it's not necessarily a bargain to do so. 15 is a great short par 4. You miss way out right, you could be in the forest, you could be among the fans, you could be in high grass. If you miss left, you can be either in the water or barely hung up. And if you go deep, it's not that much fun either. It requires a truly accurate shot. It plays more like a par 3 in that regard. 16 is a great hole. 17 is a very good hole. 18 is a very solid finishing hole because it just encourages you to whack the hell out of the ball because you just see this alleyway. You think, all right, if I bang it 310, I'm going to leave myself a flip wedge. And while that's true, if you miss in the fairway bunkers left or right, or you miss way right, you're in some deep trouble. And you don't typically see those shots on TV because the players who are competing well that week, they're hitting it straight. They're in control, typically. And so they find themselves in good position to score. And while this golf course tends to give up a lot of low scores over the course of a week, it doesn't seem to give up a lot of consecutive low scores. You might shoot 60 one day, and the next day you struggle to shoot 67. It's really interesting in that regard. It's rare to see someone just light this place up for 4 straight days, as we'll get into a little bit later. And that does influence some of my thinking about the tournament, but I want to go over kind of top of the table, what's the odds board look like currently? And then let's get into, a little bit beyond that. Okay. All right. So let's start with, top of the table guys who are 35 to 1 or less. We'll go through them first. Scotty Scheffler, as you might imagine, is your favorite this week. Plus 420, plus 450, plus 400. Depends on where you shop for that. I know there are a lot of people who are going to bet Scotty Scheffler this week. And I actually think you're right. I think he's going to win. And I can see an argument for any of the guys I'm going to talk about after Scotty Scheffler down, past basically anybody in the 20s, plus 20-ish to 29-ish, to have two bets, have a win without Scotty and have a win with market. You're going to get significant value, obviously, keeping Scheffler, but you get the benefit of not having to deal with a guy who I think is on the come here. I think he's going to win. So we'll talk about that as we go on. Xander Schauffele, 16-1, has a pretty decent record here. Cam Young's 18-1. I think there's something wrong here. I think there's an injury situation. Just doesn't seem right. I don't have any confirmation of that. Tommy Fleetwood is 19-1, and I think he's a very interesting play. If you don't buy into the Scheffler hype about this week, Fleetwood makes a lot of sense. Got pipped last year by Keegan Bradley. Has done well here twice in the last 3 years. I very much like his chances here this weekend. He played pretty well the last 2 times out. T11 at the Canadian Open and T11 at the US Open. He's playing good. It's right there. Sam Burns is 20-1. I don't think this fits his profile especially well. Ludwig, same thing, playing well. I just don't think I could bet on him. I can endorse betting on him, but the struggle's closing, and this just kind of be in a place where he could spray it sometimes. If you spray on the wrong hole here, you're making double, and doubles mean losing the tournament here, pretty much. Matt Fitzpatrick is also 20-1. I think he's just a little off. Wyndham Clark's gassed, but he is 23.5-1. Now we get into some guys that I think are quite interesting. And we'll do from 30 to 50, and then we'll get back to the model and think about it. Justin Thomas is 33-1. Miss Colin Morikawa, he's 30-1. I like Justin Thomas a lot this week. Has a good record here. Been playing pretty well. Not fabulous, but pretty darn good. And I think this is a venue that lines up pretty well with how he likes to play. Patrick Cantlay is the horse for course play this week that's not Brian Harman. He's 35-1. The results are not as good as they had been leading into the PGA Championship, where I kind of shared on social. I regret to inform you that Patrick Cantlay is playing well. He isn't quite on that level, but I mean, he's been in the top 15 here the last 5 years, basically. It's silly that he hasn't figured this out yet. That said, not playing his best golf. If you could wait until the tournament starts and you push him down to 40 or 45, I think that's an auto bet. 35 is on borderline. Siwoo Kim's 35. I think it fits the profile of a guy who wins here. A guy that doesn't necessarily have to putt it great. You just got to hit it close a lot. The greens are pretty small. You're going to get a lot of chances. Matt McNeely is 35-1. I rarely bet on him. Russell Henley is 40-1. We're going to start skipping guys here. I like Russell Henley at 40-1. Feels a lot like Colonial. Played very well last week at the US Open, except he couldn't putt for a lick, and the greens got him. Well, I don't think that's going to happen multiple weeks in a row with a guy that's that good at putting. Ben Griffin's 42-1, kind of interesting. JJ Spawn, 50-1 is kind of interesting. Keegan Bradley is 50-1, going for a third win here in 4 years or 5 years, whatever it is. He's not playing the same golf, right? But you have to accept that he is a course specialist and gets motivated by this kind of thing. Just hasn't been the same usual guy. All right, so we'll come back to this in a second. Let's go over the top 10 of the model for this week. Again, we make the top 10 available to our members at golfnewsnet.com. And you can do the top 10 for free. Everybody else in the 72-player field or the full field every week is available for members. $40 for 1 year, $70 for 2 years, $100 for 3 years. So here's our top 10 here this week. No surprise, Scotty Scheffler, number 1. There's no Rory McIlroy. We didn't mention that, but there's no Rory McIlroy if you hadn't heard that. 2.837 points. So, for a high-level event, that's a very good number. Still very, very good. It's all based on strokes gained. It's my modeling. I don't break it out into certain types of strokes gained. How you gain strokes differs from guy to guy. And, emphasizing one over the other emphasizes one style over the other. That doesn't always work. Also, we include course or venue-specific strokes gained numbers over the last 3 years. So we're taking out the stylistic version of it by just including tournament-specific strokes gained. And then we're also looking at the last 10 PGA Tour events played. So are you playing well now? That's a small part of it. It could be a larger part of it. Like Wyndham Clark would have been higher in our model if we did a shorter term model. That's why we do a short-term model. So we'll talk about that in a little while. But if you emphasize the short term too much, then you disguise who a player really is. It's tough to figure out. But that model has served me well over the 6+ years I've done it. Tommy Fleetwood is second. Ludwig is third. Xander is fourth. Russell Henley is fifth. Patrick Cantlay is sixth. Chris Wrighton is seventh. Alex Fitzpatrick is eighth. Obviously, we lack data about Alex Fitzpatrick on the PGA Tour. And certainly in this tournament, but man, he's playing great golf. Aaron Rai is ninth. He had a very nice U.S. Open. If you didn't notice, T11. I mean, I didn't even notice. I don't even think they put him on TV once over the weekend. Maybe they did and I missed it, but hardly saw him. And then number 10 is Justin Thomas. So number 11 is Matt Fitzpatrick. If you're curious, Cameron Young is 12th. I already told you why I'm not going to bet him. Want the rest of that model, you can go over to golfnewsnet.com and join. So let's dive back into the rest of this field, and we'll skip around here a little bit. Justin Rose is 55-1, has had himself some very nice tournaments of late. I think if you have not hit him already, hammer him for the Open Championship. Royal Birkdale, place where he got started, the hole out when he was 17, full circle. I don't usually believe in that kind of stuff. I don't believe in providence like that or happenstance, but I'll bet he does. And he's playing well, and it's a golf course that he should like still at this age. So I would hammer that. Beyond that, Chris Wrighton's 60-1, obviously very high on our model. Do you want to go after a guy who probably just hit 2-iron around here all week? Or you want to go after Alex Fitzpatrick, who doesn't hit it quite that hard, but he's a great iron player. That's the kind of golf course. This is the kind of golf course that really, really rewards that. If you look at the breakout of course fit, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but this is a bit of an anomaly. Much more emphasis on tee to green, much more emphasis on iron play than other courses on the PGA Tour. And the reasons for that are obvious. Shorter golf course, you're not hitting drivers often. Smaller greens, putting, not as much of a variable, right? If you hit the green, you're probably relatively close. You're going to have a lot of looks at it. So really comes down to iron play and much less about putting, much less about driving than you might think. Aaron Rai, I think, is an interesting player at 66-1. Sahith Theegala has gotten close here, 69-1. Had himself a nice weekend. I mean, it obviously didn't work out in the end at the U.S. Open, but playing pretty well. What's not to like about that? JT Poston is kind of interesting at 70-1. Himself a super U.S. Open. Playing great golf. Won at Memorial. This isn't like Memorial really at all. But I do think he could play pretty well here. Ryan Gerard is 76-1. I love his game. Someone pointed this out to me. I saw it on social media today. I thought it was interesting. Before we get to that person, 92-1 Brian Harman. Just bet it. Bet it with or without Scotty. Bet it win in top 5. Just some combination. You should have Brian Harman in your portfolio this week. But back to the guy that's 86-1, Hideki Matsuyama. It just doesn't make sense. I know he's not a good putter. I get that. Putting doesn't really matter as much here. He's not always the best driver of the golf ball. Well, driving doesn't really matter here. He hits it far enough. It doesn't make sense why he's 86-1. It's almost like a bet it out of respect for the player kind of thing. I don't get it. I really don't get it. So it might be a guy you want to hammer. Corey Connors, 105-1 all day. Give it to me all day. Guys who win this tournament, guys who don't putt great. Great ball strikers. Keegan Bradley, Scotty Scheffler can be a great putter, but he's not a great putter. Typically, Xander Schauffele's done very well here. Not the best putter, great ball striker. What do you mean Corey Connors is 105-1? He was like 500-1 to win the U.S. Open, had a good first couple of days. So I think there's something amiss there. I think you got to be interested in him. After that, I'm challenged to find a guy I like, and it escalates very, very quickly. So really after that, I'm going to say no. But some people are going to be on Brandt Snedeker because he won in Myrtle Beach on a relatively tight golf course. He's playing okay. Very motivated. What about Ben James? Did very well for himself his professional debut at the Canadian Open. 240-1 here. Maybe. I mean, it'd be a big stretch, but maybe a top 10 bet could be good news for you here this week on him. Let's look at our current form guys. So guys who have multiple top 15 finishes in the last 5 PGA Tour events played. We don't have a lot of them in this. A lot of people took time off between the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open and leading into the PGA Championship. So, there's not a lot of golf been played here. But here are the guys. Sam Burns, of course, Memorial, close call at the U.S. Open. Wyndham Clark is the most prolific player. He's won twice and a third at Memorial. So, clearly playing very well. Eric Cole lost a playoff at Colonial, played well at Memorial. Does he get that back here? I think he's about 105-1, 110-1. I would bet Connors over Cole, and I'm not A guy who just loves to stack players. I like having 10 players on my card. So he would make the cut over Corey Connors, but I get it. Tommy Fleetwood playing great. T4 Memorial, back-to-back T11s at the Opens. Ryan Gerard playing pretty well. Probably should have won Memorial, but didn't work out that way. I think he's an interesting player at the number he's at here this week. Siwoo Kim's playing well. Justin Rose, we've mentioned. Scotty Scheffler, of course, all the freaking time. JJ Spawn. T6 at Colonial, T12 at Memorial. Not bad, right? I mean, I don't think I would bet him to win this, but I get why you would. And then we talked about some of the experience, the good finishes here, event history, players who finished in the top 15 at this event in the last 5 years. Guys that are at multiple, so 2 top 15 finishes. Keegan Bradley, both wins. Jason Day, injury problem. Harris English, Tommy Fleetwood. Fleetwood got extremely close. Denny McCarthy, 2, who needs a good week desperately. All right, guys with 3. It's Justin Thomas. I didn't mention Xander Schauffele. He's in there with 2. Justin Thomas is your guy with 3. Scotty Scheffler has 4, and your guys with 5. Patrick Cantlay and Brian Harman. We've talked about all those guys. Course fit. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Trying to break out basically how I do. Everyone does course fit a little differently, I think. But my course fit is I want to compare what the top 25 in average over the long haul, top 25 finishers in a Travelers Championship field, how they gain their strokes that week. And then I want to compare that archetype to a player when they finish in the top 25. Because that's a good finish for them. So when they're playing well, what does that comparison look like? If you're playing like crap, then you're playing like crap. But if you're playing mediocre or great golf, I want to know what your comparison point is and just see if it kind of makes sense. This is more of an affirmation, not a touch point that you start with. But the breakout is 28% putting, 72% tee to green, 18% off the tee, 38% on the approach, 16% around the green. Because if you miss small greens, you got to get up and down. So of those players in the field this week, the guys that are fits are the ones you'd expect. Brian Harman, Tommy Fleetwood, Keegan Bradley, Patrick Cantlay. Guys you might not expect, Justin Rose and Nick Taylor. So I can imagine why you would bet Justin Rose here this week. You get where I'm going with that? All right. Let's talk about winners at the Travelers Championship. Past champions here, going back a little bit of time. From 2021 to the present, Harris English, Xander Schauffele, Keegan Bradley, Scotty Scheffler, Keegan Bradley. Notice the trend there. Great ball strikers. Not necessarily the best putters. Putted well that week, but if you look at the winning scores, they're all over the map. Minus 15 last year, minus 22, minus 23, minus 19, minus 13, minus 19, minus 17 twice. I mean, for a tournament that gives up so many low scores, you would think the winning score would be 20 under par at least every year, and it's not. Because this course has an interesting element of teeth to it. It's really hard to describe. But if you're one of those players, bettors who loves a, overall winning total bet, I think you would steer clear here this week because they're going to price it probably to 17 under par, 263. But 2 of the last 3 winners have been 20 under plus, and 3 of the last 5 have been under 20 under. So you got to play that very carefully if you're into such things. I would just skip that wager this week. There are way more. There are a bunch more courses that are way obvious about that. Let's talk about, for you bettors out there who love top 40 bets, top 20 bets, those types of things. I like to look for players in the field every week that have had, in the last 50 PGA Tour events contested, whatever of those that these people played, did they finish in the top 20 45% of the time or better? We have a lot of those players here this week. And there's modest value on some of them. I just want to point out some. You probably get a decent value on Ben Griffin. You would probably get a horrible value on Patrick Cantlay, even though they're about the same, right about 50% each. Ricky Fowler is very interesting because he's in the top 20 54% of the time. I wouldn't bet him to win, but I would love him. I think you would get a decent value on him in a top 20 bet here this week. Siwoo Kim, right on the edge. He's in the top 20 56% of the time. You probably get a decent number on him for a top 20. Beyond that, the guys at the most consistent level, the top level, you might expect Scotty Scheffler, Tommy Fleetwood, and Russell Henley. Fleetwood and Henley are basically the same number, 65%. Scotty Scheffler is in the top 20 92% of the time. I mean, it's probably the worst bet in sports to bet him on a top 20 finish. Yeah, well, value-wise, it's a good bet to cash. Happens 92% of the time. But it's a bad value bet, and it's priced that way. But if you would love throwing your mortgage at a minus 400 bet for him to be top 20 every week, you've done pretty well for yourself over the years. Let's talk a little bit about variance, guys. So I like to look at this every week. Strokes gained, tee to green variance over the last 30 events played. And I like to look at not only how well these guys are doing in terms of strokes gained, tee to green, because that's really what tells me the kind of player you are, versus putting, which can change wildly from week to week by size of the greens, curvature of the greens, pin type, wind, time of day you play, the putting surface itself, like all kinds of stuff. That can vary wildly. And one thing I want to point out, and this is just as a kind of consequence I've thought of from the member guests, it's way harder to go from a par to a birdie or eagle than to go from a bogey to a par. And what I mean by that is we think of the difference in strokes between a bogey and a par is one stroke, and a par going from par to birdie is one stroke. But the effort and luck and variance that it takes to do each of those two things is very different, especially at a high level. If you are a good player and you hit the green within 30 feet, there's a really good chance you two-putt. If you hit it within 20 feet, I promise you're going to probably two-putt. 10 feet, you're absolutely going to two-putt. I mean, there are extenuating circumstances where that doesn't happen. But at 8 feet is a 50-50 putt on the PGA Tour. So if you're not inside of 8 feet with your birdie putt, there's a 50-50 chance or worse you're not making that thing, right? At 10 feet, it drops down to, I think it's 40% make rate, something like that. So now you are less likely to make birdie than to make birdie. Just because you give yourself a lot of birdie putts doesn't mean you make a lot of birdie putts. It is way more effort, way tougher to predict. So that's why putting to me is the most variable thing that we have in the sport. And when people go, oh, well, Scotty's putter is cold. No, I mean, the putts look good. A lot of the putts he hit, there were some suspect ones over the course of 4 days. But there were a lot of great putts that he hit that just didn't go in. That doesn't mean he stinks at putting. It means he missed the putt. And he could have missed it for 4, 5, 6 reasons. And that don't have to do with the stroke. It's crazy. So that's why I care about the tee to green variance so much. Because this gives me more of an indication of who you are week to week, tournament to tournament, venue to venue, right? So I'm looking for guys who are gaining a lot of strokes tee to green on the average and doing it with relatively low variance. I don't want a lot of up and down. Now, I want a pretty smooth curve week to week. So of the guys in the field that fit this criteria, here are like 10 of them. Scotty Scheffler, I'll say, all right, the guys that are gaining more than a stroke in the last 30 events per round, tee to green, and low variance. Here are those guys. Scotty Scheffler, Matt Fitzpatrick, Alex Fitzpatrick, Cam Young, Patrick Cantlay. Patrick Cantlay is so good tee to green. He stinks at putting. Well, this venue doesn't hurt guys that don't putt well. Siwoo Kim, right on the borderline. Tommy Fleetwood, right on the borderline. Adam Scott, for sure. And that's it. It's a tough list to get on. But if you know you've got these cornerstone guys, I think it's great for DFS as well. If you've got a low variance guy, but you know he's going to gain a ton of strokes tee to green, that's somebody who's going to be probably in the top 20. And if they get hot, you're probably winning your contest or your matchup or your league or whatever you're playing. So really, really important. Wanted to point that out. There's one other thing I want to go over here, which is our short-term modeling, which is a graphic we usually do in the video version of this show, where we're looking at strokes gained in aggregate. We're looking at quality strokes gained, which is a measure we made up to kind of communicate the value of strokes gained relative to your competition. And then strokes gained on the approach is a totally separate metric. So if you are gaining at least 1.2 strokes, 1.3 sometimes, but somewhere in there, I'll say 1.2 this week. 1.2 strokes per round in the aggregate over the last 10 PGA Tour events, you're on this list. If you are at 1.5, 1.6, let's say 1.5 for this tournament, 1.5 quality strokes gained per round. So that's your strokes gained total multiplied by a constant that we come up with, a variable we come up with really. It's based on how many points go to the winner of an official World Golf Ranking event. So in a major, you get 100 points. The multiplier is 2. So what we're saying is double the value of strokes gained in a major. In a 70-point event, so really high-end signature, that's 1.4 is the multiplier. You get where I'm going with that? So if you're playing in events with less than 50 points to the winner, you're actually losing the value of strokes gained for quality strokes gained. And then the last one is on the approach. If you are gaining 0.6 strokes on the approach per round, you're on this list. It's a different list. But those are guys I know who are hitting it close, who are playing pretty well approach-wise, but for whatever reason, the putts aren't going in. And that can change. Or they're not driving it well. Whatever. Those two things can change pretty wildly from event to event, but especially putting. So, all right. Strokes gained total above 1.2 last 10 events played. Here's those guys. Scotty Scheffler, Cam Young, Ludwig, both Fitzpatricks, Xander Schauffele, Wyndham Clark, Eric Cole. Pretty good list. Not as many as some other events, but pretty good list. Quality strokes gained. So basically, if you're playing in the Memorial, the signature events, those kind of guys, we got more of them. Way more of them. So you're not necessarily gaining that 1.2, but you're playing against better competition. Those guys, Cam Young, Scotty Scheffler, Ludwig, Xander Schauffele, Matt Fitzpatrick, Colin Morikawa, who is right on the edge of the strokes gained total. Russell Henley, right on the edge of strokes gained total. Sam Burns, right on the edge of strokes gained total. Alex Fitzpatrick, Wyndham Clark, Jake Knapp, Patrick Cantlay. Knapp's hurt, not in the best shape, so I would avoid him. On the approach, 0.6 strokes gained per round last 10 events, whatever of those that you played. Here are those guys. Alex Fitzpatrick, just crushing it tee to green. 0.88 strokes gained on the approach per round. Wow. Phenomenal. Adam Scott. Both those guys, most of these guys on this list, half of them, have negative strokes gained putting in this time. Now, it's not by a ton, but it's enough. JJ Spawn, way to the negative. Ludwig, actually positive, believe it or not. Mark Hubbard, who's not in this field. Cam Young, Scotty Scheffler, Matt Fitzpatrick, Ryan Gerard, who does everything pretty well, but especially approach and putting, and Kurt Kitayama, who's really not gaining off the tee at all right now. It's kind of crazy. But, great approach player. So those are some guys to think about. We've talked about Gerard. We haven't really talked about Kurt Kitayama. I think that's kind of interesting. Everybody else, I think, has come up here. Adam Scott is playing very, very well, just can't putt. Just cannot putt. And it's always been that way. So do you want to subject yourself to that or put him in for a top 20? Probably top 20 is not a bad bet. So there's all of that. I think that's everything Travelers Championship that I've got for you. I think that pretty well rounds it out. So let's spend a little bit of time on the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. Third LPGA Major of the year this week. And we'll get back to the Italian Open in a minute. But I do want to spend some time on this. So Nelly Court is going for her third consecutive major. She's going for a fourth win this year. She has been spectacular. She is plus 330 to win. I don't know why you wouldn't bet her. This is a perfect venue for her. Favors her length. It favors the way she plays. Everything favors her right now. I think she makes a lot of sense. Beyond that, some players to look for. Ronan Yin's having a great year. She hasn't won really yet, but 15-1, major champion. She's done it before. She's coming back. I like her a lot. Lottie Woe, 22-1. She should have won on the LPGA on Sunday in Michigan. She ganked a 3-foot putt in the final hole regulation, fell into a playoff with Miyu Yamashita, and then Yamashita. And Yamashita won on the first playoff hole. And there's this picture I put on the Golf Newsnet Facebook and Instagram pages of Lottie Wood in the foreground, walking away looking just mega pissed, while Miyu Yamashita is hugging her caddy in the kind of slightly blurry part of the background. It is an incredible picture. She's mad. She's going to play well. Hannah Green won here in 2019, first major title. Has cooled off a little bit after. Great start to the year, but still an interesting play. Same number, 22, I think is worth a look. Charlie Hall, 30-1. Plenty of people will get behind her. Gabby Lopez, 35-1. Finally proved to herself in a major she can do this thing. I think she'd be a great longer shot to look at this week. I know a number of people are interested in Ina Yoon at 46-1. I can get along with that, but I would rather go with Patty Tavatanakit at 70-1. I think Hazeltine's going to play a lot like Memorial Park. Roughs down a little bit for what you might usually expect at this place. It's been soft. It's been rainy. Her distance is going to work out really, really well here, I think. It should work to her favor. And to that end, I think you can also look at Maya Stark at 100-1 for that reason. I think being a bomber here is going to help. And if you're so interested in getting a little bit more exotic, how about Cassie Alexander at 110-1? All long-hitting players. All of them could do well here. So, emphasis on long hitters. Emphasis on people who might have done it before. So that's why I would be after Patty T and Maya Stark and Cassie Alexander. Probably a Lottie Woad. And then Nelly to kind of cover it all up, just in case she does win a third consecutive major, which is pretty crazy. All right, Italian Open for a few minutes. This is an interesting field because there's no live event. There's supposed to be a live event this week. Supposed to be one in New Orleans. That got canceled. So instead, almost a fair amount of the live guys that are DP World Tour members are like, well, play the Italian Open instead. And that includes Joaquin Niemann, who, if it weren't for that 11 on the 6th hole or whatever it was, 7th hole, I forget, at the U.S. Open, and that 2-stroke penalty came along with it, he might have won the darn thing. Now, he had nothing to play for after the 11, so he was just fighting uphill the whole way and got there, but could be interesting. Might spur him on a little bit. This venue is not known to me. I mean, it's in Turin. I don't really know Turin golf courses. I don't think it's been here in a while, so Niemann's interesting. Patrick Reed's back. Playing back-to-back weeks. Imagine that. Play the major, and he's going to play this. And I think he kind of wants to stick it to the live guys that are playing in it. So I kind of like him at 15-1. Eugenio Chikara just won a couple weeks ago. 22-1. He's a super streaky player. Could be an interesting play here. Beyond that, I don't really love anything. Maybe a Dan Bradbury at 65-1. Maybe an Adrian Sadier at 66-1. And that would probably be the extent of it for me. I've really not touched the DP World Tour a ton this year. Korn Ferry Tour for that matter either. I've really stuck to my guns on the PGA Tour and the LPGA. Those are my money points. I know some people who love the DP World Tour and the wild variability of it. It takes a lot of study, I think, and a lot of just guts to bet the DP World Tour regularly. You're foolish to bet live, but it takes a lot of just guts to bet the DP World Tour. So that's not for me, but if you're into it, God bless you. All right, that should do it for us this week on the show. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. We'll be back next week with another slate of shows. We'll be down in Myrtle Beach for the 4th of July, but we'll do a show down there. We'll have a great time. Let me know if you have any questions. Get a hold of me via email, ryan@thegolfnewsnet.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Ryan Ballingy Golf. YouTube as well, Ryan Ballingy Golf. And you can find Golf News Net on those services at either Golf News, it's Golf News Net at all, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So you can leave a comment, shoot me a DM. My DMs are open. Get a hold of me. However you want to do it. Happy to talk golf, life, whatever you'd like. No problem. You can join golfnewsnet.com for $40 for 1 year, $70 for 2 years, or $100 for 3 years. Over at golfnewsnet.com, get access to everything that we do, all of the tools that we put together, the modeling, the articles. There's a lot that comes out every week, and I tried my best to kind of summarize it here. But if you really dig in with it, you really kind of spend some time with the work that we do every week. It's a lot. And it's very valuable, I think. It really can kind of help siphon through big fields. It can siphon through these small fields, too. It can help you kind of pick between guys. And we've had a lot of winners this year, so it's been a good year. We'll be back next week. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. I'm Ryan Ballingy. We will talk to you next time right here on The Press.